Welcome back. I don't know what camera. Now we have so many cameras. I don't even know what eye line to be using to tie in that guy. I'm Wes Chatham. This is my good buddy in the flesh.
All of the flesh.
All of the flesh. Franck, who drove cross country just to see me. He didn't have anybody else to see. He does not see any of the family or friends or people in Vancouver. It was just for me, right? I was the reason. Now, you might go visit other people since you're on the way, but I'm the reason that he came. And he's been in the dirty for a week now. We've been having a great time. Well, I've been having a great time. I hope you're having a great time. and we're excited that we get to do these podcasts in person. And we decided today, we just watched last night, and which is great is that we're doing this podcast. We get to watch the movies in real time and then come back and talk about them. But we wanted, Ty and I love our horror, and we want to start doing more indie horror and movies that we really like that are indie horror. And a movie that Ty has talked about on the podcast that has been a fan of for a while. I feel like I've seen this before, but I still can't tell. I feel like it was really the first time last night. It's a movie called You Are Next. And you want to introduce the movie?
Yeah, You're Next is, it was a surprise for me. It was a movie I had seen people on some of the horror movie websites. They had been talking about it. They've been excited to see it come out. And so when it came out, I got it on video on demand when it came out. And I was really surprised by it because it's my favorite kind of indie horror movie. My favorite kind of indie horror movie is a movie that when you see the trailer for it and you start watching it, you think it's one kind of horror movie, and then something happens, there's a dramatic twist, and it's a completely different thing. I think the best example of that I saw recently was Barbarian, where you watch Barbarian, you think it's a movie about this girl who's going to be stalked or...
By the way, spoilers through this whole thing. Spoilers for every movie.
Just put this at the beginning. Yeah. Hey guys, we're going to be talking about horror movies, specifically You're Next. We're going to spoil the shit out of it. If you haven't seen You're Next and you plan to, you should probably stop this and go watch the movie and then come back. Okay. So Barbarian was like, it starts out, you think it's one kind of movie, and then something happens at about the 30-minute mark, and it's completely different. It is not at all the movie you thought it was. And You're Next did this for me. You watch it, you think, oh, it's a movie about a family trapped in a house. They're being stalked by mass serial killers. And it's going to be a classic slasher film.
Yeah, right? An invasion film.
Invasion film. Yeah, like a funny games kind of film, right? Where it's like the bad guys come in, they torture the family. I thought that's what it was going to be, and I'm not always a huge fan of that genre. So at first I was a little, I don't know if I'm going to love this so much. And then there's a moment in the movie where you realize, oh, that's not at all what's happening here. When the character of Erin, who is the main female protagonist in the film, it turns out has a wide variety of skills that make her very hard to kill. So the film begins with it begins with a short prologue about a guy and his girlfriend being murdered in their home by an unknown assailant. And the last thing we see is that somebody has written, when the guy discovers his girlfriend has been killed, he sees somebody has written "You're next" on a window, and then he's killed.
Yeah. Before we move on through the prologue, it reminded me a bit of Scream's prologue.
Yeah.
And it had that same kind of home invasion feel. The invaders all have masks. It's a fox, it's a goat, it's a bunny, or a lion.
It's a cat, a fox, and a lamb.
Yeah. And so, the style of their mask and them creeping. So I enjoyed the beginning. It's very traditional. Yep. We saw it in Scream. You got a little sex in the beginning to kind of throw back to the 70s, 80s, where you got to have a little bit of sex in your...
You got to get a couple of boobies at the beginning.
You got to get a couple of boobies in the beginning. A couple, because one boobie doesn't really work. You got to have... They usually come in pairs.
You got to get... Yeah.
And the repeating song that ends up repeating through the thing. There's a lot of setup in the beginning.
Yep. And it's an important scene because then we cut to the family who are going to this big house in the country that they own, and it feels like it's a family reunion. It's the mom and the dad, their 3 adult children, their adult children's families, their partners are all coming, and a guy and his new girlfriend. He's going to introduce his girlfriend Erin to the rest of the family. And this opening prologue is important because we see the mother and father as they're going to their house. They drive past the house where we saw that murder happen. So we know that they're in the same neighborhood as where we just watched the murder happen.
And we also know it's the only person around for miles and miles. So they're in the middle of nowhere with one neighbor. And he mentions it's kind of nice that the neighbor's here because other than that, we'd be completely isolated out here. Yep. You know? And, you know, as we go through this, one thing that I want to say up front is I enjoyed the movie. And Adam Wingard, who directed this movie, I think he did one of the better Godzilla, King Kong movies. So I'm becoming a fan of him. And in this movie, you know, Ty and I being big horror fans, you can tell that this person has loved horror movies and studied horror movies. Yep. And he's done some really cool things with this film. And so putting it out front, I really enjoyed it. I want to support him and the spirit of what it is. And also I know that movie was made with no time, no budget, probably a newer crew, you know, and so I know the struggles that come along with that. And we've made those movies too. And so one of the most annoying things is when somebody comes along and is like, you know, this is what I would have done, or this is what I would have done. And it's like, you don't understand that if they can make something with this time and this money that is entertaining and is really a fun horror movie, that's an accomplishment. Having said that, the whole point of this and what we are kind of bringing to the podcast is us sitting around drinking beers, talking about horror movies and talking about and really diving in and like, how do we think it could have been better? How do we think that things that were really admirable about the movie that really made it unique and pulled us in? So as we kind of take this apart, we take into account that we're fans of the director, fans of the movie, and we're just going to have a conversation about it going forward.
Fair enough.
So then you get to meet the family. You get to meet the mom and the dad, the patriarch of the family, the mother, and
the mom played by horror icon, one of the queens of horror, a scream queen from the 80s and early 90s. Barbara Crampton has done
Peter Frampton's daughter.
No, not he's not. She's not Peter Frampton.
Oh,
but she was. I think the first time I ever saw her on film, she was the girlfriend of the main character in the H.P. Lovecraft film Reanimator, where she has one of the most famous horror movie scenes of all time, where everybody out there who has seen Reanimator knows exactly the scene that I'm talking about. So it's cool to see her. What I like about what's happening, I've seen her in a bunch of movies recently where she's playing sort of the mom or the older character. What I love about that is you've got this actress who really made her bones in the 80s as a horror actor and was really well liked and is sort of having a bit of a renaissance now that she's gotten older. She's getting parts that fit her age. She's still great. It's exciting to see her on screen where I'm like, oh, I love her. I'm glad she's back. So she's playing the mom, which I'm very happy that she got that part.
Did you ever read I think it's called Ten Little Indians? The Agatha Christie?
Yeah.
It
had a much more offensive title at the beginning.
What was it called?
Oh, we're not going to talk about it. The original title when it was first published in Britain was not Indians.
Oh. Well, but I like that style of story where there's a group of people coming together.
And then that one is the classic or one by one.
They get picked off. Yeah, and then you get picked off and do the thing. So they come together. You kind of start to learn the dynamic of the family, and again, you know, this is whoever made this movie, whoever wrote this movie, is a lover of horror movies. You can tell in a lot of things they use. What I wanted more from this film is, and I don't say this to all types of slasher horror movies. So like with the first Friday the 13th, for instance, I don't need to know I know what that movie is. I don't need to know all the dynamics and have fully developed characters. Like it's a setup and it's a murder thing and you're having fun with it.
Yeah, some teens come out, they fool around, they get murdered.
Yes. This was, again, it was in between where there were personal stories and personal dynamics within the family that was interesting to me, and I wanted to have a better understanding of who these people were and how they were different from each other and what the internal struggles were. And I feel like they were more types.
I'm going to disagree with Wes a little bit here, just a little bit. I actually appreciated the economy of the storytelling in here because they very quickly let us know who these people were with just one scene.
But I didn't feel like I knew who they were.
I did. I felt like I had a basic understanding of who these people were and their relationships to each other very quickly. I felt it was very economical. Now, could it have been expanded? Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I thought with the space that they gave it, the story did a nice job of giving us, we get this scene where the guy's looking for the Percocet in his wife's purse. And then he goes and he tries to fool around with her and she's like, I'm not feeling it right now. And you get a sense of their relationship. And, that this is a couple that's on the spiral out of a marriage and they're self-anesthetizing with prescription drugs. And then you get the daughter who's very insecure, who feels like she's not the successful one in the family, who's showing off her boyfriend as if, look, I have attracted this successful man, so therefore I'm successful too. And really like trying to play up his being a filmmaker. Yeah. And so I felt like, I don't disagree that you could do more.
So the younger brother comes up and you're like, well, how does he fit into the dynamic? And what is the struggle between, the brother at dinner? He's like, can you speak up and say what you said, unprofessional? What does that mean? And they kind of go to it. And when the younger brother showed up, it's like, and then his
gothy girlfriend.
Yeah, his gothy girlfriend. And it's like, okay, I guess because she has a scowl on her face and she's smoking a cigarette, she's the jaded one.
Well, I think they were deliberately underplaying those guys because of the twist later.
Yeah, but so there's a difference between. Okay, so
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Okay,
you don't have to argue.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think that's storytelling wise. I think that's what they were doing. They were underplaying it.
The thing is if you and Janae showed up at a dinner party, you wouldn't have to say 5 words, but you being a fully fleshed out human being, I would start to know who you are immediately because you're not playing cliches.
I'm an enigma.
Yeah, enigma rapping.
You can't know me. I'm the wind, baby. You can't know the wind.
And so in saying that, like I think in terms of just the horror types for the slasher movies that are kind of set up, like there was a hybrid where there was a little bit of a story, there was a little bit of a conflict. And I'm not saying that it needed to be done in exposition, but in performance and point of view, we could have known more. We could have known better who these people were.
I don't disagree with that, but it is
because we would have been more involved in it. I think we would have been like the father. To me, was like a vanilla thing that didn't really exist, And when the wife died, I didn't care. I didn't have. Any
I cared because it was Barbara Crampton.
Because it's Barbara,
and I didn't want
Peter Frampton's daughter. Yeah.
Now I will say though that this movie's moving very quickly. Mm-hmm. It's a short movie. It's moving at high speed. It's getting through this stuff to get to the action as quickly as possible. But there are some nice moments later. Mm-hmm. After the horror starts, after the action starts, that some of these characters that were a little underserved at the beginning get some really nice moments that develop them better. I think
like Z wanting to have sex with her boyfriend next to the dead mom.
That scene, and also
that was interesting because you're like, oh wait. And it was even too horrifying for him.
Yeah, he was like, no,
And another way that you could, and to kind of go back a little bit, but another way that you can kind of show character and kind of show who they are is how they respond to situations, which is my favorite thing. And when she was like wanted to fuck in front of his dead mom, he's like, that's a little bit too much for him. Or when he had to kill his brother, he's so entitled and spoiled, and he's like, you made me kill my own brother. And it's like, motherfucker, you're paying them to kill this thing,
He has my favorite line in the entire movie. And we can get to it later when we go through the story. I'll mention it when we get there. But that character has my favorite line in the entire movie. And it's exactly what you're talking about. The degree of entitlement, the spoiled entitlement this character has, it leads up to, I think, the best moment in the movie.
Right.
But yeah, so we get these people together, and I think to some degree, and I'm not trying to like say that this movie is a movie without flaws. I'm not saying that, but I think to some degree, the vanilla mother and father who are just loving parents, excited to see their children, really happy that they're doing this thing. I think it does serve a story purpose in that you don't get any sense that there is a reason why anyone would want to kill them, right? There's one brief moment where Erin and her boyfriend, who is this couple's son. So Erin is sort of the main protagonist of the film. She is the girlfriend of one of the sons of this family. She's the one who's being brought to the family to meet them for the very first time, played by a young Australian actress named, is it Sarni?
No.
Sharni?
Joseph.
It's Sharni.
Sharni. Yeah.
Oh, Sharni.
Yeah. So a young Australian actress named Sharni
Vincent
playing this part, who, by the way, is great in the part. I think she does a really fantastic job. But there's a moment when she's talking to her boyfriend, who is the son of this couple who owns the house. And he says something about the fact that his father had worked in the defense industry and made a ton of money and had retired, and they bought this house as sort of a retirement project. And they kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, and let's be clear, I'm not talking about exposition, because later we're going to get into where I feel like there was too much backstory build or anything like that. Like, to give an example, watch the first 5 minutes of The Big Chill and watch the first 5 minutes of this. They're introducing a big cast. There's complex dynamics within the people. Their point of view as the actor playing the characters are so strong. When they walk into a room, it's a fully fleshed human being. So if you watch 5 minutes of The Big Chill, there's probably less exposition in this, but you have a great sense right away of who the people are.
It's also one of the best casts.
That's the point.
Ever assembled.
That's the whole point we're talking. Yeah. That's the point I'm making. Is like, I think this movie's phenomenal and what they did for the money. But like, this is a talented, fun horror movie. But if you sit down and discuss it and talk about things that, like, I wish more would have been in certain things, this is like one of the things you talked about.
I still think the best one-line introduction for a huge cast ever is the breakfast scene in Aliens, when all the Marines are getting together. Like, in that one scene, you get a sense of who everybody is. That is one line of dialogue.
That is a great example.
Yeah,
that is a great example.
Yeah, so this doesn't have as much of that, but what you do wind up with, which is what you need for the movie, is they're all together at dinner, and we get a sense that this is a mother and father who have these 3 kids. They really love them. This is a big moment for them to get all their kids back together for this dinner, because their kids are all adults. And you get some sense of the kids that they have. And all of the kids are kind of fucked up. You know, the oldest boy is kind of a dick. It looks like he and his wife are on the outs a little bit. He's anesthetizing himself with prescription drugs. The
middle brother,
who is our main character's boyfriend, he clearly is in some kind of weird place, and he's dating one of his he's a college professor who's dating one of his former students,
right? Who is
the Aaron character used to be his student. Yeah. So that's a little weird.
The only sane person in the only rock in the movie is Sharni.
Yeah. And then you've got the younger daughter, who is kind of a mess.
Insecure,
she seems very insecure. She's desperately trying to prove herself. And then you've got the younger brother, who, when he shows up, he's a bit of a cipher, as Wes pointed out. He shows up, he's got this weird goth girlfriend who I thought was super cute. So I was fine with that. But he's got like this gothy girlfriend whose name is Z, and the two of them really, other than sort of sneering at everybody and seeming like outsiders, they don't do a lot at the beginning, but we'll later get some of the better moments in the movie. But that's sort of, we're sitting down at dinner, we've got this dysfunctional kids with their parents who are just happy to have them all together, and then shit goes wrong.
And that's when the movie is excellent. Yeah. The first kill sequence with the arrows coming through the windows, when the documentary filmmaker guy, he sees something, the family's arguing at the table. There's a dispute between the brothers. They're hashing out all this whole stuff, which in retrospect you learn was kind of staged for this moment. Yep. And the documentary filmmaker guy that has a scarf, so automatically you want him to die. He sees something out of the window, and he gets his attention. He slows up, and all the chaos of the fighting, and he keeps walking to the window, and then an arrow just shoots through the window.
It's really it's really well filmed though, because you don't see it. You see the window break.
Yes.
And then we cut back to the family who's still arguing.
Yeah, that was well shot and well edited.
Who hasn't even noticed that the window broke. They're all sitting there arguing with each other, and then slowly they realize something is wrong, and the camera tilts up.
Yeah.
And we reveal the documentary filmmaker still standing by the window, who has got a crossbow bolt sticking out of his forehead, and then he just sort of falls down. And then that's when everything goes nuts.
That's when all shit breaks loose. And then the sequence of them, you immediately start to see that, because you have expectations. We've all seen a million horror movies. Yep. You immediately, a lot of the work is done for you, and that's what I think was really cool about these horror movies you talk about.
They're using the tropes.
Babadook, that they're using that against you to change and to subvert your expectations. So immediately, our lead character, Aaron, she immediately reacts a little bit different that you find interesting, even if it's very subtle, like a subconscious thing, where she's like, stay away from the windows, get down. She immediately like reacts in a way.
She's the only one who keeps her cool.
Yes.
Everybody else is kind of freaking out. Aaron you can tell that Aaron is scared and that she senses the danger of what's going on. She's not a super person, but she keeps her calm. Stay down, stay away from the windows. She's handing people chairs that they can use to hold in front of themselves as they run.
And them running while they're shooting arrows at him, holding the chairs, that was really cool. And they're going one by one, and it's really good. But another thing they do is really smart is they don't make Aaron Rambo.
No.
She just behaves differently than you anticipate her to behave. And then you're trying to figure out, because she's still, cares about her boyfriend, emotional about her boyfriend, and lets her boyfriend go try to be the hero and certain things like that. And so that first sequence with the guy tracking them as they're running and they're tracking him, and then she comes through and it shoots through and hits the thing was fantastic. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
And I think the crossbow is an interesting choice as the weapon that the killers are using, because there is something so viscerally unsettling about having something sticking out of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think it would be much worse to get shot by a rifle.
Yeah.
I would much rather get shot by a crossbow than like a rifle. Rifle's going to do a lot more damage, but there's something so unsettling.
No, I wouldn't. It depends on what ammunition you're using in a rifle. But if it's something that is not...
All right, gun boy. All right, gun boy.
But if you get hit with, like, if it doesn't have a ballistic tip or something like that and it just goes straight through, then you're way better off, because you have that arrowhead that goes in, and that's just tearing everything up. And either you got to push it all the way through or you pull it out.
The amount of kinetic energy that is imparted to the human body from a 30-06 round is orders of magnitude more than the amount of kinetic energy that's imparted into a body by a crossbow bolt. But the thing, even with the jaggedy tips and everything.
But if it's a clean bullet, the kinetic energy, the power and the way it shoots through works.
You're familiar with hydroshock. What hydroshock is? Hydrostatic shock?
Yeah.
When you watch a bullet, even a clean full metal jacket bullet, go through ballistic gel, the cavity that it creates from hydrostatic shock is enormous. Yeah. It doesn't make just like a little tiny hole
like a watermelon. You shoot the thing and blow out the back. But it depends on the ammunition that you're using. Would you rather get shot in the shoulder and it goes straight through, or get shot with an arrow?
I'd rather get shot with an arrow.
I'd rather get shot with a rifle.
Well,
so let's set it up. And
when your arm doesn't work after that,
you think it's going to work with and the thing about the bow and arrow is also it's clunky and janky. So if it'll hit and it shoots all around inside your.
Well, bullets do that too.
Yeah, that's true. But it depends if it's a bone or not.
A bullet going through your body.
God damn it! Go get my rifle.
A bullet going through your body is like a bomb going off inside of your body. But anyway, there is something. All of that aside, there is something very visceral about being impaled.
Yeah.
Right? I thought the most brutal death in Conan, the greatest movie ever made, Conan the Barbarian.
Second greatest.
Is, the greatest fantasy movie ever.
Greatest fantasy, yeah.
Is when the guy who's played by Thor, the actor, his name is Thor. I can't remember his character's name in the movie, but when Arnold builds that trap with the spike on it.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets impaled. Yeah. And he's just hanging there on the spike and he's like grabbing at it.
Brutal.
It's the most brutal death because there's something so visceral about being impaled.
Yeah.
That there's a thing sticking out of your body. And so when people are getting hit by these crossbow bolts and they're sticking out of them, there's just something so visceral about that.
So one thing that I really enjoyed after the documentary where the girl was like, I could do it, Dad. I can do it. First of all, I was like, why the fuck would her dad let her run out there?
As a father? I'm sure you were like, what?
Yeah, I was like, what?
If Nash was like, let me run for it, Dad, you're going to be like, no.
Yes, it's not, even if my leg was broken off, I would be like, I'm limping out there. Like, none of my kids are going out there. And everybody's like, all right. And all the brothers and all the guys in the house were like, all right, go for it. And so she goes back and she gears up. She gets her thing. She's like, I'm going to do this. Opens up. And they have tripwire hanging over the door. And she runs and it slits her throat.
That monofilament. You can't even see it.
I know.
Boom,
and it slits
right into
through
the
it.
neck.
And I thought that surprised me. I haven't seen a death like that.
And it's slow, it's brutal because her throat is cut.
And it slits her throat.
And the dad is trying to hold her throat closed, which is brutal. Yeah, it's a brutal death. Yeah, for sure.
If I cared more about the father and the relationship between them, like that would have been more powerful. But
and the thing that's interesting, you say like, why are her brothers doing that? I think what we learn about them all, I understand it.
Oh yeah,
because those three guys are incribly self-absorbed. The oldest one is a drug addict.
Two of them are. They wanted to die anyway.
That's the plot twist. But the oldest one is like a fucking drug addict, and then the middle one is so self-absorbed. The one that Aaron is dating, incredibly self-absorbed, and the youngest one just seems like a dipshit.
Yeah.
So like when they all let when they let their sister be the one who runs outside, like at first I remember the first time I saw that movie, I was like, what? Why are they letting her do it? And then after I'd seen it once, I'm like, oh, I know exactly why they're letting her do it.
Yeah. But as it progresses through and each challenge and each death that comes their way, did you ever see Fortress? Did you ever see not the Highlander Fortress?
No, you told me to watch it. It's the Australian one about the kids.
The Australian one, yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah, because you told me to watch it.
Did you like it?
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic.
It's super low budget, but it's great.
Super low budget, but it's a fantastic story. And one of the things that this movie, and I might be jumping ahead, but one of the things that it does that's similar to that movie Fortress that I really like is that you can see the different personalities of each killer through their behavior and their movement and through their mask. Yeah. Like the guy that cut he was like, oh, like he was getting off on it.
Yeah.
And then when he saw his brother, he's like, oh! Like he had these grunts coming out of there. And to me, the spookiness, and maybe I'm jumping ahead if we start talking about killers, but the spookiness of them just being like some regular guys that are just kind of demented, but they love their brother and they're just trying to make some money. It's like a job for them or whatever.
Yeah.
In some ways, it makes it so much more scarier and raw, that they're doing this thing.
Yeah, but again, this scene is another scene where Aaron winds up standing out because even though the scene is about them freaking out, the older brother has been injured. He's got a crossbow bolt sticking out of his back,
and that was a few moments of laughing with his whole arrow.
With his arrow in his back. So, but they're all panicking, and then the daughter going, "I'm going to make a run for it. You should let me go. Nobody ever trusts me. I can do this." Erin is the one in the corner, and nobody's listening to her. She's kind of sitting in the corner by herself, and she just keeps going, no one should go outside. Nobody should make a run for it. This is a bad idea. Yeah. Let's stay in here. Let's lock it up and stay in here. And nobody's listening to her.
Yeah.
Like, they're just completely ignoring her.
And they did a great job of the slow build of she's reacting different. She's calmer. She has a plan. She has the common sense answers. You said before, like, if you watch a horror movie where the protagonist makes stupid choices, it's less scary.
Yes.
But if the protagonist is making smart choices and doing the right things and it's still failing, that's when it starts to scare you.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you said, Erin is not Rambo. So even though she keeps making smart choices, she winds up in situations that are scary.
Yeah.
Because she's not a commando. She's not, she can't like hand-to-hand defeat everybody.
Yeah.
So she winds up in some pretty scary situations. And I like that. And we always talk about fight consistency and character consistency.
Yes.
She remains very consistent through the whole thing. So then after that, now we've got a dead daughter. She's the first of the kids to die with the slit throat. The mother, understandably, completely loses her shit. And so now we're starting to get the family separating a little bit. The mother's losing her shit. She goes upstairs. The father goes up with her. Aaron's running around the house, locking all the windows, locking all the doors.
I did have a hard time with the fact that there's invaders invading the house. They don't know who's inside, who's outside. The mother's freaking out, and they go, let's just go put you to bed, honey. And they lay her in bed, they put her in bed, and they leave her in the room by herself.
Yeah, that was a little... Now, it does lead to a reveal, because after she's... So what happens is the mother is sobbing and inconsolable. Her daughter just died right in front of her in a really horrible way. I get why she would be inconsolable. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it. Like, I think that would have that effect on you. But the thing you said about they leave her alone, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But
especially
then,
the husband.
Yeah. But then it's revealed that one of the killers is in the room.
Like, if you were in shit like that, Janae is not being left by you.
No. I mean, I'm sitting next to her with a shotgun in my hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, but the thing is, I felt like it was a thing set up for the reveal that the guy was under the bed.
Yeah. Well, and at this point, they're still trying to figure it. Like, they at least give a reason why her husband, the father, leaves, because he's going around. He's also trying to help secure the house. I understand. That feels like a priority. That feels like an important thing to do. You want the house secure as quickly as possible. I get it. But then the reveal is that the killer, one of the killers, because there's three, comes out from under the bed. He's got a machete and he kills the mother, which sets up a reveal later when the husband comes back and realizes that his wife has been murdered. He finds the closet that the killer was hiding in, which has got old water bottles, some food wrappers, a bottle of pee in it. Now you understand how that guy was in the house. He was already there. He was already hiding. And they set that up earlier because when they first get to the house, the door is open, which he's surprised by. He's like, oh, the door's unlocked. And then the second thing is when the mother is putting groceries away in the kitchen, she hears a loud thump from upstairs, and then her husband comes up from downstairs. She's like, were you upstairs? And he's like, no. And she thinks there's somebody up there.
And he goes to investigate, and as he's opening the closet and the music's playing and it's straying like he's about to go into the closet, his son comes up, which we know in retrospect is a part of the whole thing, comes up and interrupts him and stops him. So then he leaves that closet, which he could have discovered the whole thing if he would open, because the guy was hiding in the closet the whole time.
So
which is spooky.
We get the reveal that clearly so part of what this is revealing to us is these killers this isn't random, right? These aren't three killers wandering through the woods. They see a house and they start killing people because they planted somebody in the house ahead of time. Somebody was already waiting there, right? And the father even says that to his son. He says, this was planned. Somebody was waiting here for us. They were in that closet waiting when we got here. So obviously there is a larger story at play here. It's not just like Funny Games, if you've ever seen Funny Games. Funny Games is like two kids randomly decide to torture and kill a family. And it's random which family they pick. They're just knocking on people's doors, and the first person to open the door, they go in to do it.
Right.
This isn't that. This is something else.
And so, the siege is now in full effect.
Yep. While all this is going on, Erin continues to prepare, and she goes and she arms herself. And she goes and she gets like knives.
But the whole time she's behaving in a way that you're not anticipating. And it's like, it becomes one of the things I love most about the movie.
Yeah. Well, and it's not unreasonable that she does that. If I was in a house and people were trying to break in and kill me and there wasn't like a gun, I would do the same thing. I'd go to the kitchen. I'd get a knife. She's arming up. And then that leads to her first kill. And actually, before she gets her first kill, so what happens is she's walking past a window and an arm bursts through and grabs her.
Oh, yes.
And she has a knife in her hand. She's gotten this knife from the kitchen. She has a knife in her hand. So when the person grabs her and starts to try to pull her out the window, she stabs and impales the guy's arm to the windowsill with the knife and gets away.
All her success comes from staying cool in intense situations.
And also, I think it is definitely that, but it's also, I think early on, everybody underestimates her.
Yeah.
I think if they took her seriously, she wouldn't be as successful early on.
Right.
Yeah, she keeps surprising them with her competence.
When her first kill, when the guy hits the ground, and then she just straddles his back, it's like, and just smashes his head into the ground, and then she grabs the hair and said, "Do you recognize this guy?" That was the first full tilt.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, something's different with her. And it was so great because there's so many times where they hit the guy and he goes down and you're like, he's not dead. And they behave like he is dead.
That is my biggest pet peeve. That is my biggest pet peeve. What? Yeah.
But another great moment is when she grabs the back of the guy's hair and she goes, does anybody recognize this guy? Just
so calm.
And you see in their face, like, and now in retrospect, you go back and you know that these brothers were in on it. And you see their face like, fuck. Like, who is this girl? And she's fucking it up. And the irony is that they brought her to the party to be the witness that's impartial to anything that happens.
Which we discover later at the end of the film, that she has a part to play in this that she's unaware of. That her boyfriend has not told her what her part in this is. And he just didn't realize that he thought he was bringing a house cat to the party, and he brought a fucking tiger.
Yeah. Now, I will say, so there are moments within it where he says to her, I didn't know you could do this, or,
Well, that's There's a great line at the end when he's explaining, and we'll get to it.
Yeah.
When he's explaining what the plan was.
Yeah.
And he says, and then turned out you were really good at killing people. That's weird.
But that's the thing that's what I loved about the movie most is the mystery about her and then the little hints that she would drop. Because she's like, you don't know everything about me. And you know, like my childhood was different than others.
Weird,
yeah, and weird and stuff like that. So that's when I was really leaning into this, and I was like, oh, this is so interesting because, you know, I think there's so much that she was doing by showing that the exposition scene with Z, when she talks about growing up, like there's like a moment, it felt like a false beat to slow the pace down so she could talk about growing up in a survivalist place in Australia, and I didn't need that. I wanted that to be through action.
Yeah.
You know?
I honestly, now I don't know the writer. I've never spoken to this person. I like this movie. So if I did meet him, I would just tell him how much I like his movie. But that moment did feel to me like a studio note moment.
But there's no studio.
Right. But it felt like that kind of moment.
It did feel like a studio note.
Where the studio's like, are we sure people will understand?
Yeah.
Won't they wonder why? Could we have a line in there where she explains why? It felt like that kind of moment. And I'm sure
like the movie was following the rules, show, don't tell, all the way up until the point where they told. Yeah. And I think that the showing was so much more interesting. And as the movie progressed, you could have more opportunities to drop a lot of hints and to really show like what her background, like she needs to know, the writer needs to know specifically who she is, where she's from, where she acquired the skills, what type of skills that she has, and how it plays and consistently plays out throughout the thing. But just the behavior of that will give us everything we need to know, and we can do the rest and figure it out. And the mystery of that's what's compelling. As soon as she kind of was like, I was raised on it, to me, it lost all the fun that was having on that point.
I also, being sympathetic to writers, this is a movie that moves very quickly. And I'm wondering if just having one scene, get it out of the way, his thought was, this is how we can not dwell on this. We can just get it out of the way in one scene, in one little moment of dialogue. Yeah,
but I mean, if the movie moves really fast, that's why don't slow down the pace.
Right.
You're doing a great job by saying you don't know everything about me. My childhood was a little bit weird and all this. And then the line at the end is really funny. It's like, turns out you're really good at killing people. That's weird.
Yeah.
You know, and then kind of going forward. But that's really funny when he's like, it is weird. And like, where does that come from?
Yeah,
and it's what makes this movie special. It's what makes the movie unique is that you expect her to behave a certain way. Yep. You're so conditioned. And then she turns out to be highly competent, highly calm. And when she kills, everybody that she kills is just right fucking on, right? Yep. It's a little bit of a power fantasy of watching this because these guys are there. And when she's over them and she smashes their head, you know, you're always like, you're always in horror movies, you're like, you're not going far enough in the killing. Like, they need to, and she, it just gratuitously, and then picks up his head and drops him down. And all the kills that she has, she doesn't fuck around. Like, she eliminates the threat, and these are the people that we have to deal with. And she's always one step ahead of them.
Yeah, well, she definitely never commits the sin of assuming somebody's dead so that they can pop up behind her later. She never commits that sin.
And she killed more people in the movie than anybody.
That's after we watched the movie, I was like, my favorite thing about this movie is Erin has the highest kill count in the movie.
Right.
She just full on, some shit goes down, she gets her murder on, and she just eliminates all of the problems. The rest of the movie follows the premise that has been set up, which is these guys are trying to break in and kill the people in the house with varying degrees of success. Erin is there trying to protect the people in the house, trying to save herself, trying to save her boyfriend, and is revealed not to be Rambo. There are several situations where she gets in over her head. She gets seriously hurt. She winds up having to dive out a window and has a jagged piece of glass sticking out of her leg in a lovely Die Hard moment, you know, because the hero has to get some glass in him.
Yeah.
You know? But so she's not super heroic. She's just tough, and she's the kind of character you always talk about wanting, which is she's resourceful, she's tough, she's got determination, she's got competence, and those are the things that she'll use to win.
Yeah.
She doesn't have superpowers.
Right.
She's not bulletproof, right? Pretty soon, everybody's dead except for Erin and her boyfriend. And then we get the big reveal at the end that the entire thing was a setup, that Erin's boyfriend and his younger brother, the one with the goth girlfriend, had planned, they had hired these three guys to murder the entire family except for them in a seemingly random act of violence that Aaron would be there to witness.
Why did they kill did they kill the neighbors because they could be a liability if one of them escaped, they would go to the neighbor's house?
Well, they never explained that, but my assumption is a combination of that. I think you're right. I think part of it is they were the closest neighbor and you don't want them, hearing what's going on and coming over. But I think the other reason is it helps craft the story that this is random. That when they say
just home invaders.
It's just home invaders. They killed our neighbors, and then they killed us, and there's no connection between the two things. And so it creates this story, right? And writing "you're next" on the wall in both places ties the crime scenes together. They never say that that's what it was, but I suspect that that's part of it. Yeah. But then you have the moment, the confrontation between Aaron and her boyfriend,
which is great,
where he's
because
we skipped a part that I want to talk about though.
Go.
Okay. So in the course of all this going on, we discover, before we get to that last scene, we discover that Z, the goth girl, and her boyfriend, the youngest brother of the family, are part of the conspiracy.
That was the first reveal.
That was the first reveal. And the way we discover that is the younger brother and the older brother, the one who had previously had a crossbow bolt sticking out of his back and he's high on Percocet, go down into the basement to try to find some stuff to help them secure the house. And the younger brother stabs him. And I thought this was a combination of several things. It's kind of funny. It's also more realistic. And then it has like this brutal moment in it, which is, if you stab somebody with a screwdriver, unless you hit them in the brainstem or the center of their heart, they're probably not going to die. At least not right away, right? And so this guy keeps stabbing the brother
8 times,
like not in places that are instant kills.
Yeah.
And at one point he's crying and he's stabbing. He's like, "Why won't you just die? This is really hard on me." Like the entitlement of
he just kept grabbing tools off the thing and stabbing him.
Again, yeah.
And that didn't work. And they get him stabbing again. And he's like, "Why don't you just die? This is really hard on me."
that we're supposed to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because he has to do this thing and he doesn't like doing it.
Fucking millennial.
Yeah. And then later he's complaining to the home invaders like, "You guys made me have to kill my brother."
Yeah. Yeah, so then it revealed that he's involved in it and everything. And the second reveal is the middle brother, who is Aaron's boyfriend, went off to go try to get a car and go get help.
You think he might be dead.
You think he might be dead because you forget about him. And I love moments like that where the character goes off and you forget about it. Did you ever see Summer School?
Yeah.
You remember? And then there's a guy at the very beginning, like this big, tall football player guy. He comes in and he says, "Can I go to the bathroom?" He says, "Yeah." He gives him a bathroom pass. He leaves. You don't see him through the whole fucking movie. And at the end, you hear the final exams, and the big football player comes back with the bathroom pass, and he hands it to him, and he sits down and aces the exam. But anyway, so he's off, and Aaron goes through a living hell battling these people. She ends up triumphant and kills fucking everybody.
She gets fucked up.
She gets fucked up, but she kills fucking everybody.
She kills everybody.
And she does it with grit. You know, she comes through. And the phone rings on the youngest brother. And she recognizes the thing, and it's the middle brother name on there. So she picks up the phone. She doesn't say anything. She just listens. And the guy's like, "Hey, man, is it all done?" And so she really figures out that her boyfriend, the person that brought her, the person that she genuinely cared about and loved, is completely betrayed her in the worst way.
Yep.
And this kills me. He goes, "I'm coming in. It's fucking cold out here, man." And his thing was he was pissed off because it was cold outside.
Right.
While people are being brutally fucking murdered, including probably his girlfriend. And so when he shows up, like, you know, you talk about understanding a self-involved sociopath.
Oh my God.
Because his whole speech of like, "You weren't supposed to die." Like, that's going to make everything. No, you're
supposed to be the
because
witness.
you were the witness.
Yeah.
And I was going to do this. And look, and by the way, we're going to inherit a lot of money. And right now you're mad and everything. And you see this. And this is what I love about this ending, because you see her doing the math. And she goes, and which was unexpected, is he said, his whole thing of laying out is like, "You were supposed to be the witness. I do care about you. We're going to have a lot of money. And by the way, I'll give you $500,000.
I'll pay off your student loans.
I'll pay off your student loans. Think about it. Don't be silly. Think about what you're doing. And she is watching him thinking, who the fuck is this guy? And how did I get involved in it? And just fucking stabs him in the neck and then kills him. And then talk about the next moment.
Well, so this is a moment Wes didn't like.
I didn't like this moment.
Wes got very upset about this.
Because this was so... It hit the right note. Like, she fucking kills this guy. He falls down. She should have been triumphant. She should have walked out triumphant. She fucking earned it. And the audience was on board with her.
And then she gets shot. They reveal that a cop has come upon the crime scene, has witnessed her murder of the boyfriend, and misunderstanding the situation winds up shooting her. Now, she doesn't die. She lives. He shoots her in the shoulder. You would have enjoyed this because you like being shot in the shoulder.
Yeah.
Shoots her in the shoulder.
I don't like it.
And then the last moment of the film is she has set up a trap to try to get one of the bad guys who's coming through the front door. The bad guy winds up not coming through the front door, and we just sort of forget about this trap. But the cop, after he shoots her, comes in through the front door, and we see that the trap is going to kill him, which means Erin is fucked. Because she's in a house full of people that are dead, and there's a dead cop.
And the movie ends.
Yep.
I think it would have been a really effective ending if she fucking killed the guy, he falls to the ground, and then end there. You know, when it did the wrap up.
Well, you want the 80s ending where she walks away from the house triumphant.
No, she doesn't walk away from the house. It was it was so satisfying. It was striking the right note, and she earned it. And I was with her through the journey, and she deserves it to fucking kill that guy. He falls to the ground in there because that's the story that we were there to see. We don't need the epilogue of like what happens with the cop and everything like that. But anyway, what did you feel about the ending?
If they had done the ending you're talking about, I would have been fine with it. Yeah, where she stabs him, he goes down, and that's it. That's the end. I would have been fine with that.
Thank you guys for talking about You're Next. Let us hear your thoughts, and if there's some great indie horror movies that you love that we haven't never talked about or maybe we never seen, please put them in the comments or get on our Discord channel and we'll discuss those because we're always looking for some really good indie horror out there. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please like and subscribe. We love you guys. This was You're Next. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.